If your nonprofit is fundraising in Texas, I'm sure you've asked yourself this critical question. Do we need to register with the state before we start soliciting donations? Well, let's dig into that, because for a lot of people, the answer is not what you'd expect.
This explainer is part of our multi-state fundraising compliance series, where we try to break down these really complex rules into practical, easy-to-understand terms, and it's brought to you by the experts at Ironwood Registrations. Okay, so let's get right to the heart of it. You're fundraising in the Lone Star State. Maybe it's online, through the mail, or even in person. Do you need to get registered first?
And here is that surprising answer. Believe it or not, for most nonprofits, the answer is no. Unlike pretty much every other state that has these kinds of rules, Texas does not have a general charitable solicitation registration law. This means for the vast majority of you, you can go ahead and solicit donations without registering with the state first.
But, and this is a big but, there's a crucial catch. While there's no general requirement, Texas law does carve out some very specific exceptions. So the key is figuring out if your organization falls into one of these regulated categories.
So, the regulations in Texas don't target charities broadly. Instead, they focus on a really narrow group of causes. This is mostly to protect donors in sectors where, high pressure or potentially misleading fundraising tactics could be a concern. If your mission doesn't align with these specific causes, you're probably in the clear.
The first category that is required to register includes any organization fundraising for or on behalf of law enforcement. So think of things like police benevolent associations or similar groups.
The second category is public safety organizations. This usually covers groups like firefighters associations or other charities that support first responders.
And the third and final category that absolutely must register in Texas is veterans organizations. So if your nonprofit's mission is all about serving veterans, then these rules definitely apply to you. As you can see, the regulations are super specific. Each of these categories is actually governed by its own statute, which often zeroes in on particular fundraising methods, like telephone solicitation. This just confirms it's not a one-size-fits-all system at all.
So, if your nonprofit does fall into one of those three categories, you're probably wondering, okay, so what exactly do we have to do to stay compliant? Let's break down those requirements.
The process really boils down to three key duties. First, you've got to file an initial registration to get on the state's radar. Second, you have to file a renewal every single year to stay compliant. And third, you must have a registered agent with a physical address in Texas who can receive official notices for you.
And here's a concrete example of how specific this gets. The state uses different form series for each type of organization. Public safety groups, for instance, use the 3200 series, while veterans organizations are over on the 3500 series. It just reinforces that these rules are tailored only to these specific kinds of charities.
All right, so let's zoom back out. Let's talk about the implications for the majority of nonprofits out there. What does this really unique Texas system actually mean for your day-to-day fundraising?
This really is the crucial distinction. For most of you, Texas is, for all intents and purposes, a non-registration state. But for those covered organizations, the requirements are firm. You have to register, you have to renew, and you have to maintain that Texas agent. It's a completely different compliance reality.
Now here's another key point to remember, especially for any out-of-state nonprofits. Don't confuse fundraising registration with corporate registration. If your organization has a physical presence in Texas, like an office or employees, you might still need to register to do business there. That's a completely separate issue from soliciting donations.
We've covered a lot of ground here, so let's just boil it all down to the most important points that you need to remember about fundraising in the state of Texas. So, to recap, first, no general registration needed. Second, the rules only apply to a select few: law enforcement, public safety, and veterans groups. Third, if you're in one of those groups, you have clear compliance duties. But for everyone else, the bottom line is that Texas is a non-registration state when it comes to fundraising. So, you figured out your status in Texas, which, for most people, is probably good news. But here's the thing. Texas is an outlier. Its unique approach really highlights how dramatically the rules can change from one state to the next. So the critical question now is, are you compliant in the other 40-plus states that do require fundraising registration?
Because charitable solicitation laws vary so much, Texas is really just one piece of a much larger compliance puzzle. If your organization needs help navigating this landscape and managing all the filings across multiple states, Ironwood Registrations specializes in helping nonprofits stay compliant. You can learn more at ironwoodregistrations.com.